Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
JonBenet was awake when the Ramsey family arrived home. John Ramsey had had a few alcoholic drinks that night. Patsy was the first to go to bed. John checked the Weather Channel and stuff of that nature. Bert played with one of his Christmas toys. Later on, Bert got out the bowl of fresh pineapple, and JonBenet consumed a chunk or two. Later, John put Bert to bed. JonBenet was led down to the basement by her father after Patsy and Bert were asleep. John tied JonBenet's wrists together over her head. He removed her pants and underwear. She was molested. She bled, and the blood got on her pubic area and her upper legs. JonBenet cried and screamed because she was terrified. The scream was terribly loud. John covered her mouth with his hand, and she passed out. John was scared and waited to see if somebody was going to come downstairs. JonBenet surely would tell her mother what had occurred. He placed gloves on his hands. She was wiped clean with a cloth from the basement that had the unknown male DNA on it. There were small traces of blood left between her pubic area and legs and around her vagina. The pathologist noted the dry blood in those areas, and he discovered the fibers in her pubic area and on her legs. John redressed JonBenet in her underwear. A little bit of blood from her body, containing the unknown male DNA from the cloth, stained her underwear. He redressed her bottoms and transferred the unknown male touch DNA onto the waistband of the long johns. John placed JonBenet face down and strangled her with a cord. She squirmed and struggled for life. She lost control of her bladder, staining the front of her underwear, long johns, and the carpet. John was disturbed by JonBenet's involuntary movements as she was being strangled, so he found a metal object and struck her on the top of the head. A fragment of her skull caved in, the width of the object that he smashed into her head. John went upstairs and was startled by the sight of Patsy. She was in her sleeping clothes. She forced her way past John, went downstairs and entered the basement room and found JonBenet dead on the floor. Patsy was beyond shocked. She cried and prayed. Her tears stained her face. Patsy knew John had had affairs during their marriage, knew that his first marriage ended because of his affair with his secretary, and she suspected John was molesting JonBenet for several months. So the molestation was not a great shock to her. The death of her daughter was completely something else. John blamed Patsy for what had happened, and Patsy, in some crazy way, felt that she was at least part to blame for him molesting JonBenet. Patsy wanted to call police, but John convinced her not to call and insisted that there was nothing that they could do for JonBenet now. He explained they would lose everything if Patsy called the police. Some time passed. Patsy wrapped JonBenet in a white blanket. She retrieved JonBenet's favorite pink Barbie nightgown, and Patsy drew the red heart on her hand. Patsy moved JonBenet's dead body into the wine cellar and latched the wooden block so Burke wouldn't accidentally discover her body. John and Patsy argued about what to do. Patsy agreed to write the ransom note. John dictated much of what is in the note, and Patsy wrote the last page. John placed a suitcase below the broken basement window. He would tell the police that all the first floor doors were locked. John wanted to dispose of JonBenet's body in the morning when he went to obtain the ransom money from the bank. But Patsy insisted there's no freaking way that was going to happen. Her daughter was going to have a proper burial. Patsy believed the police would discover JonBenet's dead body. Nevertheless, the ransom note, the garrote around JonBenet's neck, and the broken basement window was surely proof that an intruder had killed JonBenet. They planned the 911 call and the calls to their friends afterwards. Patsy put on her clothes from the night before and did her hair and makeup. John took a shower and got ready like normal. Patsy play-acted out that JonBenet was missing, so Burke would not know the truth about what happened to his sister. Patsy made the 911 call. John placed the ransom note on the floor so Fleet White or John Fernie would see it when he came over. When they arrived, Patsy was distraught and inconsolable because JonBenet was dead, and John acted calm because he did not want to be discovered as the murderer of JonBenet Ramsey. Well, this ends this episode of Unsolved, and next weekend we will present the grand jury and their findings. So I'll see you then.